your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say into your heart, peace be still. America's going to be okay.
So joining me today is Sheriff Mark Lamb. He's been referred to recently as the Rebel Sheriff, but I prefer to refer to him as the Rockstar Sheriff. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with him. You probably follow his Instagram and he's been on the news a lot recently, as Arizona has kind of been sort of like a hotbed of political turmoil recently, hasn't it, Sheriff?
Yeah, it has. You know, whether it's border stuff, the election stuff. I mean, yeah, it's been a hotbed. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, I've been following most of that stuff fairly closely, so I wanted to talk about some of that. But first, I wanted to play a little clip, and I'm sure you'll probably remember this.
You know, too many agencies across this country are afraid of the cancel culture. They're afraid to let their people speak truth. We respect the First Amendment, even with our employees. All we ask is they don't do anything to disparage the badge or anything illegal, immoral, or unethical. And I didn't see anything there that would qualify as that. So we're hiring, Nate. Come on down. We respect police in Arizona, especially in Pinal County, and we're always looking for guys who aren't afraid to go out and do their job.
Oh, I'm gonna hold you to that one of these days. If I'm hurting for work and I need to move to Arizona.
I don't know if you saw, but everybody was like, the way the media portrayed it is they started saying that I had hired you. And I had tons of people coming up to me and they're like, hey, thank you so much for hiring that guy from Idaho, man. That was so awesome of you. And I was like, look, I extended the offer. Yeah. But he hasn't come down here yet. But yeah, they thought that I had hired you.
That's funny. I had some of the same types of comments. People were like, oh my God, you're going to Arizona. That's amazing. I can't wait to have you down here. And I'm like, hold on. I'm not moving yet. Not yet. I mean, I'll definitely keep that in my back pocket for sure. But I thought that was really great of you to do that, especially on national TV. But yeah, it's just funny, the comments that I was getting to, you know, they're like, you're going to take the job, right? You're coming to Arizona, right?
Oh, I know. I can only imagine what you were getting because I was getting them too. Here's what's funny about that interview. Not only am I wearing the same thing today, I promise I have other clothes. But I was on vacation, and that was in Orange Beach, Alabama, and I had board shorts on, and I had done like 15 interviews that week, and I was supposed to be on vacation. My wife was none too pleased, but yeah, that was the funny thing about that interview is I was trying to find the best place I could go that was quiet, and as soon as that was over, I cowboy shirt back off, and I was right back out to the beach again.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's funny. Yeah, it's good that the cameras only catch about, chest from the chest up.
It's good.
You can wear whatever pants you want to wear.
I promise I'm wearing pants today, gun belt, everything.
Nice. Well, so like I said, you've been busy. I mean, I've been watching your Instagram. I've been watching Newsmax, which is now my favorite news network, by the way. I love Newsmax. I don't know how you feel about them, but
no, I love them. Great guys. Love doing interviews with them. They're awesome.
Yeah, I love them too. So before we get into all that, how did you? I mean, just real quick, I know that a lot of people you got a lot of followers on Instagram, and they probably already know this already. But there's probably going to be a handful of people that don't follow you and don't quite know your backstory. So, and I'm interested too. I did a little bit of research, but I don't know everything about your past. How did you get your start in law enforcement?
Man, that's a great question because I had never wanted to be in law enforcement. And I did write a book called American Sheriff, which you can get. It's Traditional Values in a Modern World. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it on sheriffswife.com or americansheriff.com. But I mean, that's why I wrote the book, was kind of answer those questions, but at the same time, kind of talk about some of the things that I think we've lost touch with as a country. But I never wanted to be a cop, never thought about it, never crossed my mind. I was 33 years old, and my neighbor talked me into doing a ride along, and went on one ride along, came home that morning and told my wife I'm going to be a cop. I had 5 kids, so the insurance and everything, I was self-employed at the time. And so the insurance and all that other stuff, that sounded pretty good to my wife. And started getting paid for vacations. It was something new to me.
Yeah.
But I went on that one ride along, and that was it. And got on with that agency. It was an Indian reservation right next to Scottsdale, Mesa, and Tempe, and worked there for a long time. And then I realized that there was just a real lack of leadership in this profession. You know, there were supervisors, but there weren't true leaders. And so I said, you know what? It was during the Obama days. I said, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm going to run for sheriff, and I'm going to be part of the solution and not the problem. And so I started making changes, came out to Pinal County, and ran for sheriff eventually. But yeah, that's the abbreviated Cliff Note version of it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, because I feel like, and I don't know, because obviously I don't know all of the sheriffs in the country. I don't know all of the chiefs in the country, but I've worked for a few, and you're right. We see this pattern, the sort of this lack of leadership. I mean, we have people in leadership positions, but as far as the qualities that leaders are supposed to exhibit, we're seeing a huge lack of that. Is that pretty much on point? I mean, I know that you're probably part of the broader network of chiefs and sheriffs all over the country. Are you seeing that too? Or are there more sheriffs and chiefs out there like you? Or is it kind of 50-50? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
You know, and I don't want to disparage any of those guys. I mean, but there's still some good ones out there. I would say, I don't know that it's at 50%. And I think that's just not me saying that. Look at 2020. How many people have stepped up? How many people have stepped into the line of fire and supported their troops or fought against border security or any of those things? It's only a handful of people. Now, mind you, a lot of people don't actually have a platform to do it. I know a lot of sheriffs that if they had the platform, they would take it. But there could be a lot more leaders standing in the gap and taking shots, but it seems to be the same guys. So I would, sadly, I think that our industry, our profession could use a boost in leadership. And I hope there's a lot more guys out there that watched what happened in 2020 and decided, hey, I'm going to do it different. And they start working their way into leadership positions, and we can really take this profession to where it should be.
2020 was horrible. I mean,
it was terrible
for rank and file guys who were out there just trying to do their jobs. I mean, not just getting fired for doing their jobs, but actually getting prosecuted for doing what they were supposed to do or doing in what they were justified in doing. Can't remember the officer's name right off the top of my head. The officer from Atlanta in the Rayshard Brooks case. He was fired. The DA prosecuted him. The charges ended up getting dropped because I think there was an issue with that DA. Like there was some issues with corruption, and he eventually was removed from office, and that officer ended up actually getting his job back with the Atlanta Police Department. But I mean, to think that officers who are out there, I mean, it's a tough job, right? You know how tough a job it is, especially when you're in a use of force situation, but especially when you're in a deadly force situation. And for an officer to come out of that clean, having been justified in his actions, and then to be prosecuted by a district attorney who is just going along with the woke culture and believing that it's okay for him or that he has the authority to prosecute a police officer when there's no evidence that he did what he was accused of doing. And I mean, it was all on tape, guy was trying to tase him and his partner. Deadly force was justified in this case, but I mean, he was put through the ringer. So
yeah, it's the mob mentality.
Yeah,
and even though the Atlanta PD put him back on, how sullied was his name over this whole thing? And these guys make split-second decisions. They do the best they can. That one was on video, and it's no different when you get a DA that's like, yeah, let's get him, let's burn him, let's hang him. They get right in there in the mix with people instead of standing and saying, hold on, we've looked at all the evidence, and this is a justified shooting. And you know what? If they had the guts to do that and stand against it, they'd catch a little flack, but then it would go away. Because these folks that are out there are looking for the weaknesses. They're looking for the chinks in the armor. And so when they find it, they exploit it, and they go hard after them. And if they would just stand up and say, no, we're not doing it that way. And no, this was a justified shooting, and he saved a life, or whatever it is you say, they should be doing that. But instead They don't want to be that person. So what they do is they put it off onto a jury, or they put it off onto a grand jury, or whatever it is, for them to make the decision. And that's dangerous now, because you have a mainstream media who has turned the American public, or a portion of the American public, against police officers. Mm-hmm. So now when you go and you roll your dice with a jury trial, there's no guarantees you're going to come out that the truth will prevail.
Yeah. Well, especially when you have elected officials who are so invested or so passionate about the anti-police narrative, right? Like with the George, and we don't have to get into George Floyd, but when you're talking about his trial, I can't imagine a more biased situation for a man to stand trial. Now, I'm not saying that he was justified in what he did. I'm not saying that at all. But I still think everybody deserves a fair trial. And that was about the furthest thing from a fair trial you could possibly see. Because for one, I mean, I don't think there's any venue on the planet that wasn't exposed to the media that covered the George Floyd incident. And then two, you have elected officials like Maxine Waters, who are going on national TV saying if they don't get a guilty verdict, then more cities are going to burn, we're going to loot, riot, protest, and all of the things that we've been seeing over the past year. So how is that justice at all?
No, it's not. It's not. It wasn't fair to him. And like you said, he deserved to be on trial and let a jury decide. But how do you get a fair jury at that point? How do you find a fair venue for that guy to be able to be tried? And then, like you said, you have politicians that continue to poke the bear and try to uneven the playing field. And that's not fair either. Politicians should be held accountable, I guess, for weighing in on stuff like that. I mean, they taint a jury. They make it almost impossible to have a fair trial, which is what both sides deserved in that situation, was a fair trial and an opportunity to come to the truth.
Yeah. Why do you think it is that politicians like Maxine Waters and those people that are responsible for, like you said, poking the bear, where is the accountability? I mean, nothing ever seems to happen to people like that when they do that. She clearly tainted that her and others, right? But she clearly tainted that jury. There was no way a jury was going to walk out of the jury room after having deliberated with anything other than a guilty verdict for fear of their own lives. Fear of the responsibility that if they somehow came to a not guilty verdict, that they were going to be responsible for riots and looting and more deaths and things like that. But you don't see people like Maxine Waters being held accountable, or for there being any sort of recourse for the citizens who sort of get the brunt of that. Why do you think that is?
Well, the recourse is you vote them out of office, but these are ignorant people we've elected into office. In many cases, I read an article recently talking about President Biden, what a fool he is. But then the article was from a foreign country, from Prague or somewhere along there. And basically they said it's the fools who put him in there. So really they become the prince or the princess of fools. Maxine Waters is ignorant to what's going on in society. And then she's drunken with power, and you combine ignorance with drunken with power, and you get Maxine Waters, and you get some of the other terrible politicians that we have in serving in office. The one thing I told my wife, because I wasn't a politician, when I got into this, I was just a regular guy, a cop who wanted to make a difference in my community. I decided to run for sheriff, and it was disappointing and alarming to me when I started surrounding myself, when I had to go on speaking events with other politicians. And I remember telling my wife, no wonder this country's jacked up. Mm-hmm. Of actually spending time with people that are actually in positions of power serving our communities is a little bit disheartening. Now, there's some good ones out there, and I know them and I support them, but there's some that are not good. And a lot of them are trying to get to a higher position, and that they view a higher position. And to do so, they're constantly either feeding the sharks, or they are constantly trying to placate to what they think is going to boost them up in votes or in the people's eyes. And so there's a lot of things that combined into that, and it's different for each and every one of them. But I would say in her particular case, that's ignorance combined with drunken with power.
Is it pretty? I don't want to say scary, but I think you use the word disheartening, is we have so many elected officials, and I don't know how they get elected. I really don't. I mean, I look around the country, and I see some of these elected officials who tend to be in the spotlight a little more than others, and then I hear the things they say and look at some of the policies that they prescribe, and I'm like, who is on board with this? How do these people get elected? I mean, I understand that people, and I guess we don't need to use any names in particular, but there are some people, I guess, I think, who are pretty good at relating to their constituents, even though, like you say, they're very ignorant as far as what the country needs, or what their state or their counties need. But since they're so good at relating to people look at that and go, oh, okay, yeah, this guy, he seems friendly, or she seems nice. That's going to be my vote, instead of actually looking at what their policies are and what they plan on doing for the future of the country or their particular state or whatever. So I think honestly, I think that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump wasn't reelected, because you got so many people who vote their emotions rather than based on any sort of logical reasoning, or the policies that he had implemented, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second, because I know that you were at least a fan of his border policies. But people don't vote that way anymore. We have a lot of misinformed voters, or who are completely not informed, but they vote based on emotion, or they vote based on whether or not they think the person presents themselves well on TV.
That's right. And it's a power issue. So if I'm a big corporation, or I'm somebody that wants to lobby and I want certain bills passed, and I got some patsy that will vote exactly how I want them to vote because I give them enough money, money can win elections. And that's how politics has always been done. You throw enough money at it, and typically those folks will win. Incumbency has a lot of power because people already know your name recognition. And then you take and you put some money behind it from these corporations or PACs, and then those people continue to get voted in. A lot of them aren't even good in their communities. They're not friendly. They're not people that really get out and spend time serving the people as they should. These are people that are going to do exactly what a lot of the lobbyists want them to do, and those lobbyists will stop at nothing to make sure that they maintain that power and stay in there, and they do it by just throwing enough money at it.
Yeah, that's I know I've read and heard a lot about the lobbyist and the sort of that lobbying environment being more of an influence than actual voters, actual citizens casting their vote. And I mean, I get it. Like you said, money wins elections. Money can help contribute to a very successful campaign. So is there a way for, in your opinion, is there a way for sort of the average Joe citizen who has nothing but his vote? Is there a way for us to combat that? If we get enough votes for the right person, is that sufficient to sort of overcome the money aspect of it?
I'll tell you a way you fix it is term limits. On the federal level, it's term limits. So the way this was designed by the founding fathers is nobody wanted to serve there. It was a nuisance. Mm-hmm. So a business owner would go serve for 2 years, 4 years, whatever. And then they would say, hey, look, I did my time. Now it's time you go. But what changed it was transportation. The ability to fly back and forth from Washington, D.C., trains, those types of things, that started to change it. And this became a profession. And now you have these people that they don't want to relinquish this power at all. Yeah. And the way you would open that back up for normal people is you make it to where it's not a career anymore. Yeah. And then that's going to get you a little bit more variety of people that go in there that are able to serve, and more opportunity for normal people to serve. I would say just because the deck is stacked against you, don't let that dissuade you from serving. If you want to try to run, whether you get beat or not, at least get in the arena and fight. Yeah. That's what you need to do. I was a major underdog when I got in, but I felt like if I put in the work, God would take care of the rest. And that's what I did. I just went out and I worked hard every day. I tried to employ marketing principles into that election, and I was able. My opponent spent $110,000. I spent $35,000. So you can do it. It just takes a lot of work. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of commitment, and it takes people to take that risk. Take that risk, get in the arena, fight it out, and hopefully you can beat some of these people that have been in there forever. Right now is the best time to do it. These people their ships are sinking left and right. They're destroying this country. And the opportunity to boot some of these people out and get some good people in there has never been better. So if you feel like you should do it, get in there, get in the fight, and let's try to fix this country.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people over the past several months who, I didn't know who they were before they introduced themselves to me, but they're running for governor positions. They're running for U.S. Senator positions. And I'm like, good on you, because we need new blood, because not only is nothing getting done, but there's a lot of damage being done, especially where Democrats are pretty much in control right now. There's a lot of damage being done because, again, people who are misinformed, they go out and they vote their emotions. They vote based on how they feel about a certain thing instead of what the actual issues are and how we can solve those issues. And we end up with the completely wrong people in office.
That's the truth right there.
Yeah. So the position of sheriff is sort of like at the juncture where politics and law enforcement meet. Did you say that's a pretty accurate
That is
description?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yep.
What's the biggest challenge that you face as a sheriff when, I guess, sort of trying to keep politics and law enforcement separate? If you can keep them separate. I don't know if you can as a sheriff.
I don't know that you can keep them separate. I try, and people always just assume because I liked Donald Trump's policies, that I voted for him or this or that. They always automatically assume that everything I do is political. I put out a video the other day that should be common sense. It shouldn't be political in nature at all.
Yeah.
I just basically said that you shouldn't mandate anybody to take the vaccine, and your employees, that's their health choices. They should make those health choices. I don't understand how that is political in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But I had people calling me Trumper and this and all that because they reviewed that as political. That's where we're at as a society now. If you have a dissenting or a different opinion than somebody, they automatically go straight to politics or race or whatever it is, as opposed to just, hey, look, we just have a different opinion on how things should be run. And so it goes to your point that I don't know that you can take politics out of it, especially in this supercharged political environment we live in now. What I want my community's takeaway to be is they're going to know where I stand politically.
Yeah.
But I want them to know that regardless of what political party you are, I serve you equally, and that I will do everything I can to protect your rights. There are people out there that speak about things that I don't like, that are anti-American, but I will fight for their right just as hard as I fight for the patriots' right to say the things they want to say, because that's your constitutional right. And I think a lot of sheriffs understand it. I started Protect America Now, which is sheriffs from across the country coming together to stand up for the rule of law, to fight against bad policies, and to stand up for the Constitution and the people's rights. And that's really what I want to see sheriffs do.
Yeah.
Regardless of politics, we're still going to go out and respond to those calls. You know this, you were a cop. When did you ever ask for somebody's political party when a call came over the radio?
Right.
Never.
Right. Never.
Because it doesn't matter when we're out there doing our job.
Yeah.
Now, in this society, it's caused me to have to take political stances,
Sure.
Which I would have preferred not to. But my stance has always been pro-Constitution, pro-America. And if you view that as Republican or conservative, then so be it. But my stance is pro-Constitution, pro-America.
Yeah. And that shouldn't be a partisan issue, right?
No.
I mean, the Constitution applies to everybody.
Exactly.
But there seems to be this, almost this tribalism when it comes to the Constitution, the American flag, all of these symbols, the national anthem, these symbols that sort of represent American core values as being, I guess, offensive and aggressive And, people on the left want you to believe that if you fly the American flag in your front yard, then, you're a white supremacist. And that kind of stuff is just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But your point that you made, as far as, the scenario, if someone calls in and needs the police for whatever reason, for whatever emergency they have, dispatch doesn't ask them what their political affiliation is. And certainly the cops don't do that when they show up to the call. But it's funny that you bring that up, because when I was being interviewed for my position with the Bellevue Marshal's office, when they did the oral board, there was a couple city council members who were part of the interview process, and one of them asked me directly what my political affiliation is. And I thought it was a really odd question. And I said, well, I'm not really registered with a party, but my beliefs and my perspective is more conservative. And he asked me if policing in a liberal area would if my political perspective would affect my ability to police the citizens who are, the majority of them are liberal. And I said, well, I don't see why it should. I said, as a rank and file guy, as a patrolman, politics have nothing to do with my ability or my willingness to police the city. So the answer for me is no. Now, I don't know how your citizens would feel about it, but there's no reason that they should even or have to even know what my political affiliation is as a police officer.
That's right.
But for whatever reason, we have these people on the left who want other people to believe that if a police officer has a different political perspective than you, then he's not qualified to do his job as a police officer.
That's right. That's what they want. And it's sad that that's where we've gotten in society. And we have to start accepting people for who they are, and then I think that the majority of Americans do that. What the media portrays and what politicians want you to believe, because mind you, government only is needed and they want to create a need for themselves. They always create crisis. They want to have you scared of something because that allows them to continue to come out and try to take care of you and do what they think you're incapable of doing. Yeah. And I don't like that. I just think that that's not government's responsibility. And so I fight against it all the time. It doesn't matter which party, Republicans, Democrats. I don't like big government. I don't like them intruding on your way of life, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. We're seeing that a lot, especially with the talk of vaccine mandates. And I know that, you said you just did a video on it, and I actually watched that just a few minutes ago. And I thought it was awesome that you did that, because we need more people standing up, because I think people are kind of afraid, or maybe they're just complacent or whatever the case is, but they know that it's wrong. And I've had tons of people send me messages like, hey, I work for a school district, and the superintendent is mandating that we get vaccinated or we lose our jobs by October 1st. What should I do about it? And I said, well, my only advice at this point, if you have an elected official or any official in an authority position who's mandating that, you get vaccinated or lose your job, is that you have to find out who else is sort of on your side. You have to get a group of like-minded people together, start signing petitions, and start gathering the numbers together, because I think that's the only way. Like, we have to make it hard for these politicians who believe that they have the authority to mandate something like that. For me, just like you, I'm all about limited government. I think the government should stay out of our lives as much as they possibly can. I don't think we need government in here making decisions, especially medical decisions, for us. So my advice to people has been, get as many people together. And I think that's why the recall election in California is going to be huge, depending on how that turns out. Even if it doesn't turn out for Republicans, even if Newsom keeps his job as governor, I think it's important to know that this can be done in other states where governors are mandating vaccines. And if you believe that your governor or any elected official has failed you, then get enough people together, get a petition going, and get enough people to make something happen in that regard. Yeah. We don't just have to sit back and take it. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're just like, well, I guess I'll just let this sort of run off my shoulders. But I don't think that's working for us anymore.
No, it's not. And Governor Newsom out there in California, I watched an interview with him, and he is clearly bothered by this. Like it's got him a little bit. He's not his slick, usually confident self. Like it's rocked his boat.
Yeah.
And I hope there's a fair election. We got people in Arizona receiving ballots for California that haven't lived there. So, I mean, I can't believe that you're going to get an honest election. I think the American people, we're still a little dubious as to whether or not we're going to get an honest election. And people view that as, I want to just have my people know and trust that we can have an honest election, but we don't seem to be willing to do that in this country to assure the American people that it's okay. And when you send, when a guy's caught with 300 ballots in his car, or they're sending ballots to people in Arizona or different states for a California election, I think that's a problem.
Oh, huge. Well, and of course, like you said, you don't get the media reporting on stuff like that. You have to, you see videos on YouTube from, private individuals who, have somehow either they've come into contact with someone, like you said, who's got 300 ballots in his car, or, people who are going around paying money to people who are collecting ballots so that they can take the ballots off their hands. It's absolutely insane. I think we got to fix that somehow before, because I think the 2022 election is going to be crucial as far as the damage that can be undone, or if there's going to be more damage done over the next several years. The 2022 election is going to be sort of that pivotal point. I think we got to take control of Congress. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's just what we have to do if we want to salvage what we can of America.
Let me tell you, regardless of party, Republicans, Democrats, this is anybody listening out there, these people have failed us. They're passing $1 trillion bills that are full of pork, full of money for other people. They are failing us miserably. They've driven us into debt, and the majority of these have been around for a long time. And we're the authors of our own fate here. Like, we're the ones that continue to vote these people in, and then we don't like the results. Then when we get them in, anybody who thought Joe Biden was going to do a good job, I don't know what to tell you. 47 years. You had a 47-year track record of a guy who has failed the American people and in political positions, and we thought somehow that was going to be different once he became president. It's an absolute firestorm right now, and they still don't want to take responsibility. Now, people will look at it and go, "You're just saying that because you supported President Trump." If President Trump was in there doing these things, I'd be equally upset.
Right.
But I'm not surprised I'm surprised at how bad it is, but I knew it would be bad because this guy has done nothing for 47 years yet. We thought that would be the best person put in there.
Yeah. Well, it's just one crisis and one disaster after another. I mean, you've got what's going on down at the border, right? And even before COVID, right? Or let's just put COVID aside. But, I know that you've brought this up several times, is that the crisis at the border contributes to drugs flowing into the country, human trafficking, prostitution, murder, all kinds of acts of, just vile human behavior coming across the border. But then you add COVID on top of it. What's the point of mandating masks and vaccines for American citizens if you're just going to open up the border and let thousands of people flow into the country who, they're infected with COVID. We know that because they've been testing them. But then some of them, we don't know their vaccination status. But what is the point of restricting Americans so much if you're just going to allow what's happening at the border?
Control.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's what I don't understand, why people can't see what's happening. These people are trying to control how you live your life, saddling you with debt, saddling the country with debt, forcing us into inflation. You got to wear a mask. You got to get a vaccine. They're trying to tell you got to stay at your house. I mean, we are on a very bad path. And unless Americans wake up and realize that we let the wrong people take the wheel, we are going to continue to crash and burn. We have got to take this car back. The American people are the ones that can do it. It's the power of the people. The founding fathers understood it. We, the people. I mean, we're on a crash course right now, and we have to wake up. We've been asleep at the wheel. It's disheartening for me because I love this country so much.
Yeah.
But it's bad. Like the border stuff it is a crisis. Don't let anybody tell you any different. And I know like folks up in Idaho or wherever you are listening to this across this country, it's an America problem. Mm-hmm. They don't stay here in my community. I can promise you that. They're North Carolina, they'll have more illegals in their jail than I will in mine. It's because the product that the cartel is bringing into this country that your government is allowing to happen, they're making as much money off of bodies as they are off of drugs. And then they're bringing dangerous drugs like methamphetamines and fentanyl into our communities. And it's designed to go to states like Idaho, Wisconsin, Illinois. That's where the cartel gets more bang for their buck. Yeah. So those people and those drugs are going to be, they're in my backyard today. They'll be in your front yard tomorrow.
Yeah. And I saw that all the time, working as a police officer here. I mean, that's where the drugs come from. Comes from the other side of the border, and and they flow in through the border by drug mules who take it all over. I mean, I remember going to a narcotics training. I believe the DEA put this training on, and they showed kind of a sort of a graph, the whole map of the United States, and the different routes that the cartels take all the way up to the Canadian border. And it's just like it's a spider web of their little sort of drug trafficking network. And it was very sobering to see that, because a lot of people don't see it. I mean, if you're not involved in, the criminal underworld, then, you just kind of go about your day. You go to work, you come home, you spend time with your family. You don't really notice. But as a law enforcement official, or somebody that at least, works alongside law enforcement or politicians or whoever, you see that stuff. And it's like, wow, I had no idea sort of the magnitude of the drug trafficking industry, especially from the cartel. So yeah, it's scary. It is a crisis, and we got to get the border under control.
Well, on the border, we sent a message to the rest of the world that we can't even control our southern border over the last 8 months. Why would we ever think we could hold Afghanistan or any one of these other countries? Now, these other countries are taking notice that we can't protect our own country. That's why they overran Kabul in Afghanistan. Yeah. Well, don't be surprised if China overruns Taiwan, or Russia overruns Ukraine, or the Middle East tries to overrun Israel. We have been that guy, the tough guy on the neighborhood that keeps everything in check. I remember when we were campaigning, it was this campaign season, and a guy named Nigel Farage, he's from the UK, and he had some great stuff to say. It was a very unique perspective, something that you didn't hear on the campaign trail. He talked about the importance of this last presidential election, not just for America, but for the world. On a global stage, what would this do to the world? And I think you're seeing firsthand exactly the impacts that our decisions have, as Americans, have made, not just on America, but on the world. And it's probably not going to get better in the next few months. Yeah. Until we start making some changes. We're on a bad path.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope that people do the right thing in 2022. And I did a video about this, about not just voting Democrats out of office and replacing them with Republicans, but they have to be the right Republicans. It seems to me there's been a pattern of Republican elected officials just sort of like sitting back and going, we'll get around to it. We're not going to really put up a fight with this policy or that policy. And they've sort of let the Democrats just kind of systematically dismantle the country. And then, like you said, that's had a global effect. Yeah. So we need Republicans in there who are willing to make a scene and stand up and fight. And, whatever it takes to go into their particular houses of Congress and fight for the right policies and fight against the wrong policies, like these spending packages that are being passed. We had both Idaho senators voted for them because Idaho was going to get billions of dollars for roads and bridges. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't there another way to do that? Another bill down the road that could have been sought after? You've yeah, sure, we'll get billions of dollars, but then what's that going to cost the country? What's that going to cost the state of Idaho? As far as everything else that they sort of sprinkle into these bills, it's not just an infrastructure bill. There's all sorts of radical policies and laws that are sort of hidden, in these bills that are going to be signed into law, and we're going to allow that to happen just so that we can get some money for roads. I'm sure that there's another bill down the road that we could agree to that doesn't put the country at risk and cause more damage.
And this is the way they do it. They throw you a little bit of money, and then you convince yourself that it's okay to do it. This republic was established by the founding fathers to the power to the states. The only way the federal government can begin to take that power is by having these states beholden to the federal government because of the money they're giving to these states through grants, convincing senators or congressmen to vote for this or that because their district's going to get this. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who to tempt with the money. And this is what we end up with.
Yeah.
Like, we're in debt already, folks. Having another $4 trillion, we don't have that money. That money doesn't exist. And the only way to compensate for that is through inflation. And it's like, we're just robbing Peter to pay Paul is all we're doing. And they're convincing politicians to sign off on this stuff. The reason why so many Republicans did not like President Trump is because he disrupted the buffet line.
Yeah.
All these guys were eating from the trough, just like from both parties. Yep. And he came in there and started disrupting that. Look, I've been to the White House 10 times. I spent many a times around President Trump. For whatever you think of him, that man loved America. He loves freedom. He loves the Constitution, and he loved the American people. Here's how I explain it. I've never been to a junkyard where there was a dog with no teeth guarding it. You know why? Because a dog with no teeth does no good.
Right.
Yeah, that junkyard dog, he may bite you and he may nip at you and growl at you and bark at you. But in the end, nobody's getting into the junkyard.
Yeah.
Well, now we got some senile old dog up on the porch and doesn't stop anybody from coming in, some toothless dog. And now America is at risk. The world is at risk because we didn't like the junkyard dog.
Yeah.
And it's sad because we had somebody who truly did love America, whether you liked all his policies or not. He had some great policies that worked, and America was heading in the right direction, and we screwed that up because of our emotions, because we didn't like somebody, because we didn't like how they treated and what they said.
Yeah.
He said it out in open. Don't think for a second that these politicians don't say worse stuff behind closed doors. That's your politicians. What we have now are your typical politicians who will tell you whatever you want, fancy little stuff, make you feel good. I promise you they're saying much worse behind closed doors about you.
Oh, absolutely. That, and I kept saying that about, the whole, the Trump comment that, talking about women and, grab them by the pussy. Like you said, if you don't think Obama has said similar things, just because they didn't get it on tape, to play for the whole nation, you don't think your grandpa has said something like that, back in his prime, when, he's just like every other man, the locker room talk. We've all done it at some point. But I'll hand it to the Democrats. They did a really good job of accomplishing their goal, which was to appeal to the emotions of the American people and make them believe that Trump was just this vile, reprehensible, immoral person who didn't deserve to be president of the United States. I don't think anybody deserves to be president of the United States. We don't elect the president so that he can make us feel good about ourselves. We elect him to protect our rights and, to protect the economy, and then to help ensure that Americans can sort of live their best life. Right. But it's not about making you feel good. It's not about making you feel good inside and having all those warm and fuzzies. I could care less. If I want to feel that way, I'll call my grandma, go talk to your priest if you need somebody to make you feel good about yourself. But that's not the president's job.
No, it's not the president's job. I can assure you that under President Trump's watch, Afghanistan, this nonsense in Afghanistan of Americans losing their lives and Americans being left behind would have never have happened.
Yeah.
That transition would have been a much more methodical and thought out and well-planned transition. Unlike what we saw was a complete dumpster fire. And unfortunately, Americans lost their lives because of it. And we look like the weakest people right now.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to grab a Democrat and sit him down and go, is this what you wanted? Like, did you think anything different was going to happen? Like you said, Joe Biden has a track record of doing nothing. But over the last several months since he's been president, it's just been one disaster after another. So,
and the only reason he's not being is because the media is giving him a pass on everything.
Yeah.
Like, this is a disaster. And the only reason it's not more of a disaster is because the media won't talk about the stuff.
Right. And I think anybody in Congress who isn't willing to discuss impeachment at this point is equally incompetent and needs to think about resigning their own position, because I don't see how anybody could argue that things are going well right now for the Biden administration. I don't see any evidence of that.
But who's on deck isn't any better. That's the problem. Is I don't know that I want him to sit him on the bench, because who's on deck is worse.
And I've thought about that too.
And then who's in the hole is even worse than that.
Yeah.
So like we're screwed. We got a terrible batting lineup that we put out there, and Joe's swinging at whatever and whatever pitch, but we can't put him on the bench because we got Kamala on deck, and she is so unpalatable to the American people. And day by day, she becomes more unpalatable. I think they wanted her in there by now. I think their arrogance and their pride told them that they could rehabilitate her, and that they have failed at that. And now they're stuck with a Weekend at Bernie's situation where they got to drag this guy along. I mean, it's so pathetic to watch him turn around. I'm not normally like this but I'm so fired up about it. I'm so tired of watching him turn around and, first of all, tell the American people, like, well, I'm going to get in trouble for answering this, or I probably shouldn't take this question. Mm-hmm. It's like, you're the president. Act like it. And then to turn around and be totally lost every time he does and shuffle off. It's so un-American. It's sad. We look silly. Yeah. And I don't know what to do.
It's like you said, the other world superpowers are laughing at us right now. They're going, oh, what were we so worried about? Because you're right. In the past, America has sort of been like the schoolyard kid that kept the bullies in check, right? Every time another world superpower thought about sort of overstepping their bounds, they look over and see what the United States would do about it. And then it makes them think twice. But if you have, like you said, somebody like Biden, who is completely lost, he's on the verge of senility, if it's not already full-blown senility, and they're going, we can do whatever we want because the United States is completely lost. They can't even get their own country in order. How are they going to step in and help these other countries that we're trying to take advantage of? So I completely agree. I think
the cast of characters they've put in there, not one of them should be in those positions. Right. The Secretary of State. You got a guy that's never even had a job. He's just a highly educated guy up there running a position of power that has global implications. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is just, I think Americans are fed up, to be honest with you. I'm fed up. Everywhere I go, people are just beside themselves. Doesn't matter what state I go to. People are beside themselves. And we have to start pushing back against this ridiculousness. And we do it through our vote. We do it through being involved, getting out there. That's how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I keep telling people that's why 2022 is so important, because you have a lot of people talking about impeachment. And we're, like you said, the lineup right now is awful. You know, you've got Harris, and then you have Pelosi as speaker. Well, okay. So in 2022, let's take control of the House so we can get Nancy Pelosi the hell out of there, because she is god awful. I mean, yeah, I agree. She's awful, and she would make an even worse president. But here's my thought on the whole impeachment and sort of who we have, you know, in the lineup. I agree that I don't think Kamala Harris would do any better. She might do worse. I don't know. But my thought is, if we impeach Biden and we convict him and we get him out of office, at least we've shown that we have recourse as American citizens
Good
when
point.
our elected officials fail us. Now, if we have to pick them off one by one, if Kamala goes in and she completely screws up the country even
she
more,
will.
yeah,
That's a no-brainer.
then okay, all right, so you're out of there too. I don't know if there's any limit on how many people we can impeach in a certain time period. But if we have to pick them off one by one, let's do it. But at least the Democrats take the loss at that point and realize, okay, maybe because during the Democratic primary, they had what, like 10 candidates, and they chose Biden. They had 9 other candidates except for Harris, who were at least more coherent. They were more eloquent. They probably at least were more familiar with their policies and their platform that they were running on, but yet they chose Biden. So maybe that will, I guess, sort of embolden the Democrats to go, okay, we need to stop choosing the most popular candidate just based on name and the fact that he was the vice president under Obama, and choose a better candidate so that if they do get elected, they don't completely destroy the country.
Yeah, and it's nostalgia too, because I'll tell you right now, I remember the Obama days. They sucked.
Yeah.
They sucked.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I ended up running for office. I got into politics because I didn't like what was going on under that. And the thought of having Hillary in there was even worse.
Yeah.
It's not a party thing. These are people that are career government leeches. They will do anything for power, votes, and money. Those 3 things. And anytime you get somebody like that, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And we need more people that love America, who want to do it. We had a guy who put his own money on the line, a billionaire who stepped into that line and took the shots. And what did we do? Ungrateful Americans, we cast them aside.
Yeah.
And we put some other clown in there that's been doing it for 47 years. And the same things that you don't like about America, he's part of it.
Yes.
He was the reason why.
Yeah.
And yet we put him in there as a president.
Yeah, it's you want to pull your hair out over this.
I don't have any hair to pull out. So I got nothing left to do but to complain. I don't complain. Look, I'm a solution guy. I think there are ways out of these problems. We're Americans. We can find our way out of this. We can turn the light back on, but you got to get involved. And you can tell by my passion that we're under the gun. Like, we're running out of time, and the world's depending on us. America's depending on us. My heart goes out to those Americans who are left behind. That's got to be the worst feeling in the world, that your country left you behind in a country ran by our enemies. I can't even imagine the pain and the sorrow that they must feel right now.
Yeah. I can't imagine that either. Well, just the fear, whatever physically you might go through, with the threat of the Taliban, being right there in Afghanistan. But then, like you said, my country left me here.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything more terrible, because I'm like you. I love the United States as well. We're the best country in the world. Now, does that mean we're the wealthiest country? No. Does that mean we have the highest test scores among high school students? No. But I don't think those are the things by which you gauge how great your country is. Now, the reason we're so great, because traditionally, is that we always have the freedom to choose, right? It's that freedom of choice, the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, all of those freedoms that we enjoy. There aren't many other countries that enjoy all of the things, all of the freedoms and the rights that we have as Americans. That's what makes America so great. And that's why I love the country so much. But like you said, I can't even imagine if I were in another country helping serve my country and helping, other people in other countries. And all of a sudden my country just abandoned me in the middle of this conflict. It would be devastating.
Oh, absolutely devastating. And it's sad to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of elections, the audits in Arizona, I mean, I hear a lot about the audits. And so I try to stay grounded in reality as much as I possibly can. But there sure seems to be a lot of talk about election fraud, and these audits are sort of producing more evidence that there was election fraud, and we have these entities that are doing the audits, but they don't want to release the results of the audits. And now there's lawsuits to try and obtain the results. I mean, but there's that going on down there in Arizona. Are you kind of seeing that at all, like firsthand? Do you have like any of that information?
Yeah, I mean, just the initial information that came out shows that there was a lot of discrepancies. I think there was like 74,000 more ballots than what were actually sent out. That's a problem. Nobody sends in 100% of the ballots. Yeah, you had 74,000 ballots more than what was sent out. I think that there is it shows significant discrepancies in the vote. They've presented it to our state Senate. I think our state Senate is trying to figure out what the next course of action will be. So we haven't seen the actual results yet, just some initial preliminary stuff that came out. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of people that work down there at the election, at the audit. I think if you were to do an audit, they did the best they could. They tried to be as thorough as possible. And look, in the end, this is what I tell everybody. I hope that the audit shows that Joe Biden won, because then I can go tell my voters that you can trust it. It turned out exactly the way it was the election turned out.
Yeah.
I think when you fight, it's like from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Methinks that the lady doth protest too much. Mm-hmm. And that's when you start fighting against it so hard, it doesn't help your cause of you trying to say that it wasn't rigged. Look, 2 years ago, the other party was saying that they were wrong and that the elections were, and that Dominion was open to being the votes being changed, or there was cheating opportunities. This was both parties agree to this. It's just that now that they're in power, they want to pretend like they never said any of that and that they didn't have issues. Trust me, they were barking louder than what other people are now. Here's where I stand. This isn't a Republican or Democrat thing. I just want the voters to have faith in the voting system. If we lose that, we are in big trouble. And so whatever we need to do to give the voters some confidence in the process, let's do it. And if that means doing an audit, then let's do it. Yeah. And let's stop fighting each other on it. Let's do it. And let's show that Joe Biden won. Or if it shows that it doesn't, then let's fix it so that we can trust it moving forward.
I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people that get stuck on this idea that, Trump was cheated out of the election and they want the results to show that was the case. But I think you bring up a good point. If it shows that Biden legitimately won the election, that's good news.
Great.
It's because that means in 2022, when we're ready to replace Congress with a majority of Republicans, then it's going to work as long as people get out and vote. So I think that's a really awesome point. Sheriff, I know you're busy. I know
Sorry, I had a kind of quick message. So
no, you're fine. I know you got a lot of things going on, but I wanted to show this your blooper reel that you posted a little while ago, because my focus and my purpose with my platform has always been to humanize the badge, and I think this is a good way to do that. For all your vigor in these these political things and sort of your fight for America. I think it's good to see the sort of the human silly side of things every now and then.
The way I normally am. I'm a smiling guy. I laugh. Yeah. And it's been hard to do interviews lately because like these topics are heavy.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's just the way things are in the country right now. Things are heavy, but I agree with you. We're Americans, and I think we'll get through it. We'll find a solution eventually, as long as we have people step up and do the responsible thing and get involved. I don't think there's no more sitting on the sidelines anymore and being complacent and hoping that, some savior comes in and makes everything okay. That was kind of my point with, the vaccine mandates. I'm not seeing any civil rights attorneys step up to take any of these cases. They're just, which is funny because every time some gangbanger gets roughed up resisting arrest, they're ready to take that case to the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
But when people are being fired for not wanting to get a medication that they didn't consent to, you don't hear from them at all. So they're not coming out to help us. So it's got to be up to the individual people forming these groups, getting as much support as they can, just like they did in California with the recall, getting enough signatures and enough people behind you to make a strong enough, loud enough voice to your elected officials saying, we're not going to tolerate this. If you're going to fire one of us, you got to fire 300 of us, or whatever the case is, and get enough signatures to, like you said, make it uncomfortable. Gavin Newsom is squirming right now. And if we can get other elected officials to feel the same way, then they'll probably think twice about these policies that they're trying to run roughshod over us with. But I wanted to share this this video because I thought it was pretty funny.
Sheriff Mark Lamb here. Meth. I didn't even make it one time. That was just a warm up.
I can.
Are you gonna eat the rest of that donut now?
We were going through some pretty cool and I'm excited to announce the launch.
And we just wanted to take a second to thank. I'm sorry, yeah.
And it's important that we spend some quality time. Reconnect with family. Yeah. I wanted to give you a quick update. It's been a great. Stop. I kind of started going on and on again. And get more people trained. No, stop. It was a great. Okay. We can't thank you enough for being willing to participate with Pinal. I was nailing it. You know what is it? Let me do it one more time. Or did I say that? Did I say arrested? Let me do it again. We, the sheriff's office, are going to be talking about what we're doing to solve those, to fight those problems. Oh, I was getting it too.
This week is National Corrections Officers Week. In a week, I mean, you gotta come in harder.
That was perfect. That was the one.
I think it's important for everybody to see kind of the goofy, silly side that, you know, law enforcement officers, we're human beings like everybody else. We're fallible. We have senses of humor, personalities. You know, we're not just a robotic guy wearing a badge. But
I hope people will come support me. I started something called American Sheriff Network. We did it because they took away our voice in law enforcement when live PD and cops were taken off the air. So I went out, found some people. We got together. We felt it was important that the voice be heard for law enforcement. We started American Sheriff Network, and we're doing that. We're getting you back in the front seat of our cars. We're showing you real deputies, real sheriffs, real stories. While we're in their car, we're showing the funny side of it, the serious side of it, and then we're also showcasing sheriffs from across the country and showing you a little bit of America as we do it. So it's a subscription site. You can check it out, AmericanSheriff.com. It's $4.99. We did it so they can't cancel us, and also you don't have to listen to ads either.
Nice.
The more we get, I think we can eventually go live. That's our goal, is we have a way to do it. It's just expensive. So, but please come on and join it, AmericanSheriff.com. Support the men and women who put on the badge every day.
And you're on Facebook at American Sheriff, or excuse me, Instagram at American Sheriff. And then can people find you anywhere else on Facebook or Twitter?
Yeah, Facebook is Sheriff Lamb, and then Twitter is Sheriff Lamb 1. I don't use Twitter much just because it's just full of hate. So many people are hateful on there.
Twitter's a dumpster fire.
But Instagram, American Sheriff, and then Sheriff Lamb on Facebook.
Nice. Well, Sheriff, thanks so much for this. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot to do, but this was really good stuff. I'm sure everybody who listens and who watches will be sort of reinvigorated to join the fight to keep America, and vote in the right people and not back down to cancel culture, to the woke mob, and to finally stand up for what they know is right. And I think that you've definitely set a good example for that. So I, for one, really appreciate that. And I appreciate you joining me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And for those who are filled with despair, I got a quote from after you read American Sheriff, Traditional Values in the Modern World, read As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. At the very end, he says, keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace be still. America's going to be okay, but we got to come. We got to get active. We got to work.
Absolutely. That's excellent. What book was that?
As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Great book. Should be on everybody's monthly reading. It's a short book.
I'm gonna get into that one. I've been reading American Marxism right now, and it describes exactly what is going on with America and with sort of the left and the victim culture that we see, and we've got to get away from that. We've got to get back to people just picking themselves up and going on their own without holding society responsible for every hardship that they face in their lives.
That's right.
So, well, Sheriff, thanks again so much.
Brother.
Be safe out there.
You too. Keep up the good work.
Thank you too.
Stay funny. I love your stuff. Stay funny. I love it.
I appreciate it.
God bless.
You too. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Officer Nate Podcast.